All right. Good evening, everybody. Trust you are doing fine again. Why the thumbs down, Anthony? All right. So for today's class, we'll be going into HTML and CSS fundamentals. We're going into HTML and CSS fundamentals. But before that, I want us to do a quick um, revision on what we learned in our first section. So before we do that, can anybody give me like just say one thing we talked about in our last section? Just kindly unmute and just tell us what you learned in our last section. Anybody? Solomon, Moradeyo, Moradeyo, Anthony, anybody? Can you guys just give us some?
I just joined. I just joined.
Oh, okay. It's fine.
I just
It's fine. Welcome. Anthony, how about you? I saw you in our last class. Murade too. And us just because about what we learned in our last class.
I was not in the last class, sir.
Oh, you were not. Okay, so it's only Anthony. Wow. So Anthony, you're quite smart. So help us out. Either you use the chat box or you speak up. Thank you. We're waiting for you. Anthony. Anthony is the one delaying us now. Oh, he said he can't talk now. Wow. Alright. It's fine. So for those that are new here, I can see that Messiah Janet said she's new. Morado also said this is our first class, and Solomon. So in our last class we talked about what software development is, which is giving computer instructions to carry out some tasks. We talked about what front-end development is. We talked about the difference between front-end and back-end and full stack. And established the fact that front-end is what the user sees. And I made use of this example, Jumia website, that most of these things we are seeing, this is what the front-end guys does. And while the backend they deal with the behind the scene. That is this your cat. If you ask something to cat now, it will ask it, yeah. So the fact that you can see this in your cat, this is what backend does. They create a storage and server on which this website can work. I hope you're all following. I hope you're all following. And we looked at how the web works, that the web works based on the browser and the server. And we also look at what the browser is. The browser is what I'm using now, your Chrome engine, your Safari, and the likes. While server is where the whatever you want to see on the internet is being stored. The domain, this is like the domain name. So the domain name for Jumia now is this www.jumia.com.ng. This is their domain name. And we also talked about URL. This is URL. So if they ask you Jumia URL, this is URL. This is their domain name. and we talk about hosting a website, which can be taught, or we can use another term for it as deploying a website. So then we look into HTML. We look into what HTML is. We said it is a hypertext markup language, and we established the fact that it's not a programming language, but a markup language, which is used to structure the website. Look at the basic of HTML elements. Look at how to create an HTML document, and we also looked at how to use VS Code. So for those that this is their first class, this was what we this was our notes for the first class. And I don't know, were you guys able to have access to it in the group? That's Solomon and Murado. Please, I'll need your response. Were you able to access the first class notes in the WhatsApp channel that was created for this course? Solomon,
No, no.
yes, all right. How about you, Murado? How about you, Murado? No, no. All right. So I will send that again. I will send the first note and the slide again. So what are we looking at today? We're looking at HTML and CSS fundamentals. But before we go into the practical aspect, funny, sorry about that. Oh, before we go into the server, sorry, I said cyber security. Yeah, that's because I'm taking the course on cyber security. Like I'm falling in love with cyber security. That aside, so we'll be looking at HTML and CSS fundamentals, and this is the objective for today. What you'll be learning today is HTML structure and semantic HTML. So we talked a little about this last week in our first class. So for those that missed the first class, this is another opportunity to like learn about what HTML structure and semantic HTML are. So we'll look at the relationship between HTML and CSS, and we'll also look at how to connect CSS to HTML files, that is connecting CSS to HTML files, how to link an external CSS style sheet to an HTML file using the tag inside the code. So this is still based on what you learned today. You get to learn the CSS syntax and selectors, the classes and IDs, how to use the class, how to use the IDs, attributes, colors and backgrounds. So I'm trusting that today will be more of practical rather than theory. You get to learn about the text styling and font in CSS, what is margin, padding, and what makes up the CSS box model. So you get to learn every element. It's a box. You learn how the content, the padding, border, and margin define spacing and layout. So before we move on, though, I would just like to explain this box model because it's a very, very complicated theory, or should I say, topic in CSS. That's the CSS box model. And what makes up the CSS box model? The padding, the border, and the margin. Padding, border, and margin. Those are what makes up the CSS box model. You get to learn basic dimensions and visual polish, that is, how to style using the width, the height, and the border radius. So let's go into HTML for now. What is HTML structure? HTML structure is organizing web page content using nested elements. And what are the nested elements? You mentioned them. The nested elements are like the H1, the section attributes, the article, and all of that. So before we move on, I would like to show us this simple HTML structure. So you can start coding with me. Now, Anthony was asking that what are these links for? And the first one, which is this one, I'll be putting in the income message. Code pen is for those that do not have VS Code. If you've not set up your VS Code, this is for you. So just click on the code pen and it will take you to this. You'll be able to follow with me with what I'm doing. You sign up, then you will see the editor. That's by the way. So same as this lookout.github.io. This one is for CSS. It's a game. It's a game. So it helps you to understand CSS. This one too is for CSS. You can clearly see in the URL that it talks about the CSS box model. So let me show us how to structure our web page in HTML. This is not our work. Let me open window. Let me close this. Alright. So I created a folder last week. It is that same folder I will be working on, everybody. Yeah, my first website. So we're talking about, I hope you can all see my screen. We're talking about what an HTML structure is. And we said there's the main heading, the about section, and under the about section, we have the heading and the paragraph. So what made me use this is that I use an explanation in my notes. As you can see, I'll show us in the code. I'll show us the results. Uh, sorry, let me make this out. So this is our main heading. as I was talking about structuring our main heading. This is a section, and under this section we have the about me. You can see that's the about section. This section is a semantic HTML. This section we have different types. We have the section, we have article, and the likes. We will get there. So I hope we are all following. I hope we are all following. Then we have another section which is my skills section. Then under my skills section, we have in each section, if you notice, we have the heading first. That heading is what explains what this section is about. So assuming I want to add another section, for instance, now I can say section and the heading. So we can see what should this section be about. Okay, let's say things I like, my favorite. Let's, let's say my favorite movies. Let's just do something random. So this section is my favorite movies section. Then you have the paragraph which you tell the people what are your favorite movies. So we can just say Spider-Man Homecoming. Let me show us the results. So as to understand, I want us to understand HTML structure perfectly because these are the things that really matters as a developer. Your code must be very structured and organized. So you see how organized the result is. We have the heading, then we have the section, which is the about me section, and we have the heading, which is about me, and the paragraph, which says I am learning front-end development. This is my skills section, HTML and CSS, then my favorite movies. You can see the result. So like I said in our last class, I told us that HTML describes how web page content is organized. That is the core thing that HTML do. It describes how the web page content is organized. So moving on, what are the common sorry about that. Before I move on, can we all confirm we are hearing me? Give me thumbs up if you are hearing me.
Yes, I can.
Oh, thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you, Mara Dale. So before we move into the common semantic HTML elements, what is semantic elements? So for those that are around in last week class, we talked about this as well. So semantic HTML means using HTML elements according to their meaning and purpose. Like for instance now, this section is a semantic element because we used it according to its name and its purpose. I mentioned earlier that what we are trying to tell the users of our website is that, and the developers that read codes is that this place is a section, and what the section is talking about here is about the person. This place is another section that talks about the skills of that person. I hope we're following. So, like I said here, I said semantic HTML means using HTML elements according to their meaning and purpose, not just for visual appearance. So, take note of this. Semantic HTML gives meaning to web page structure. I didn't even check this that I wrote this. Just like I told us just now that what semantic element does is that it just tells the user and the developers what role these contents are playing. I hope we're all following. So moving on, like I said, semantic HTML gives meaning to web page structure. Each element tells the browser and developers what role that content plays on the page. So these are the common semantic HTML elements. We have the header, navigation bar. We mostly call it navigation bar. This I'll not practicalize this now. I'll just show us in a website. Let's use this website as an example so that we can understand what those things mean. So these are navigation. These are navigation. Sorry about that. These are navigations. This here. These are navigations. I want to show us an example of another because this is logo. This is navigation. We can call this an header. So examples we have header, navigation, then the main content. Sorry, from here like this, from this place I'm scrolling, these are the oh sorry, these are the main contents. The main content. We also have the section, we have the article, and we have the footer. So let me explain that very well for us. So the header, what does the header does? The header like represents into introductory content or it serves as the header of a page or a section. I'm looking for a simple what's it called? Simple website I can use to use as an example. Uh simple HTML website I can use as an example. I have we will still use our own. So just like how we said here that this is my portfolio. That is exactly what the header does. It serves as the introductory content. I hope we're all following. And what does the navigation links does? So it represents a section that contains navigation links, just like I showed us in this website. If you click to about us, it will take us to the about us page. If you click to this newsroom, it will take us to the newsroom page. So nav these are what the nav semantic does, called navigation. The full term for this nav is called navigation. So the main, like I said, the main represents the main content of the web page. I already showed us that. Then the section, we already talked about the section. That is, it provides a meaning or purpose for a related content. The article are mostly used in websites for blog post or a news article. Then we have the footer. Let me show us an example of a footer. So this is a footer. This is what they call a footer. It's the end. It serves as the end of the page. The footer. This is a footer. Let me add it to our code. So that will show us. You can see. So this is our own footer, even though it's not so style. So moving on. Why does semantic HTML matter? I already talked about this. That one, it helps developers understand code. Most of the things that um the new generation developers don't understand is that developers read each other's code. As a developer, you are bound to read another developer code. And as you write your own code, it must be structured and understandable. So that's why I said here that it helps developer understand code, the semantic tags, and in fact, once a developer is reading it, semantic HTML helps the code to be self-explanatory itself. You don't have to be guessing, okay, what is this developer saying here, or trying to look so hard to understand the structure. Two, it helps browsers and search engines. If your website is very structured, that is very structured correctly, it will improve the visibility and your search engine optimization rankings of that website. It will build it. So we are not just saying this semantic HTML for fun. It is very, very important in learning HTML. And three, it supports accessibility and team project. That is, people like those that are quite disabled or screen readers, they rely on semantic structure to assist them or to assist users with disabilities, just like I mentioned earlier. So semantic HTML, and it also helps to keep our code bases cleaner and easier to maintain. I don't know if I still have or some project I did long ago. I have checked it later and show us. So we already talked about it that it assists screen readers and accessibility. We already talked about how it maintains cleaner projects. So now to the fun part, the part that will make our what's it called now? Our website to be more more beautiful. So what is CSS? CSS is a cascading style sheet. And what does it do? It controls the appearance, it controls the appearance and presentation of HTML content. In my note, I added more thing. I said HTML provides the structure while CSS controls how the structure looks. CSS controls how the structure looks. You see on this thing now, all of this thing that Junior is doing, these colors, how big this logo is, the shape of this button, these are what CSS do. They control the structure of an HTML structure. So moving on, this is like an example of an HTML, of a CSS. Let me show us. Let me do inline inline styling for H1 just to show us an example of HTML. Let's say color blue. All right. So you can see that the the H1 element already changed to blue. So that is that about CSS. Majorly, that is what CSS is for. Why we need CSS? Why do we need CSS? So I said here that without CSS, every web page looks like plain browser default. What is plain browser default? This is a plain browser default. If I remove the color of this heading one now, of this H1, you will see that it's not fine. It's just plain. It's just plain. So that is why we need CSS. Another reason why we need CSS is that it controls the colors, the font, the spacing, the borders, the backgrounds, the layout, alignment, dimensions, and even animation. You see, in CSS, you get to a state that you can use CSS to animate. You can use CSS to animate. And the main message I said is that plain HTML goes to a design interface. Then CSS transforms that raw structure into a real polished, user-friendly webpage. I hope we'll be able to style this our website to some extent. So we have the CSS syntax. In as much as HTML has its own rules and how it is written, CSS also has how it is written and its syntax. And its rule has three parts, which is the selector, the property, and the value. I'll use this what we did here as explanation. So H1 is the selector, color is the property, then blue is the value. I hope we all get that. If you get that, kindly react before I move on. So it will be that I'm rushing us. Thank you so much, Muradio. It's like it's only Muradio that is active in this class. Well done, well done, man. So, oh, Solomon is active. So, like I said, CSS has three rules: the selector, the property, and the value. This is the selector, H1. You can even see here selector specificity. It is this is the selector. This is the property. Color is the property. Then blue is the value. Though in CSS there are different way we can use the selector. That is when the class and the IDs come in to play. But that is that about the three rules that CSS have. The selector, which targets the HTML element, then the property, that is what you want to change about the HTML element. For this color now, in fact, it is that you want that HTML to have a background color. It can be like background color blue. Let's check it out. You see, you see, unlike when we said you should have a color of blue, now you said it should have a background color of blue. So there are different properties in CSS. And like I said, the property is what you want to change in, in the target in the targeted HTML element. So then the value. is how we change it. Like here now we say blue. Now we can just say red. I'm just using this as instance. Red. You see everything to red. So understanding a CSS rule. This is how I broke down the rule. So we have H1, which is the selector, and we have the property, which is the color, and we have the value, which is blue. I think I already talked about it. I already explained to us, so we don't need to waste our time here. Like I told us, H1 is the selector, while color is the property. That is, it's style the attributes being changed. H1 is the attributes. Let me know if you use the word attribute so I will not confuse you guys. I already explained it in a simple term. Let me not use English to bore all of us. I already said here that H1 is the selector, this is the property, and this is the value. I hope we all get that. What this rule does is that in this example now, what it does is that it finds every element on the page and make its text color blue. Selector plus property plus value is equals to one complete CSS declaration. So if I don't give this property a value, you see, it brings an error that property value expected. So this is not a complete CSS declaration yet. This is not a complete CSS declaration. I hope we are following. So then we have the CSS declarations. What are the CSS declarations? A declaration is a property and value pair that defines one style rule. This is a CSS declaration. These are CSS declarations. So I can bring in another CSS declaration. Say font size, let's say 50 pixels. You can see, you can see. So there are many CSS declaration, and you can't know them at once. You can't. Even I don't know everything. I don't know everything. But you just have to put some in your mind, and the more you practice, the more you stick to your brain. Yeah, another one we have is text align. This will make our text to the center. You can see it's not center. You can see this website is already bringing some sweet vibe. It looks like something we're already designing already. So those are the examples of CSS declarations. They are quite much. They are quite much. I'm thinking of another one at the moment now. Which one can I use? Those for the one with no use. Let's see the font weight. So font weight is how thick onto the day. You can make it bold or semi-bold. So if you notice now, it will be different. Not quite sure. So there are different and many CSS declaration. Now, you know that I've been styling this website. This is a inline CSS. This is what I'm doing. It is inline styling. That is, you are styling with CSS in the same page with the HTML. But for good structuring and proper code organization, we have to create our CSS file. You can name it styles.css. And now, how do we link it? We link it by having a link element here. Oh, yeah, already happened. So we have the relative, which says style sheet. This is style sheet and this. Now it's connected already. So let's comment this out too as well. So do you see how to connect HTML, CSS into your HTML document? You come here, you can right click to create a new file, or come here, then click on this place, new file, then write styles.css. Then in your head tag, the link attribute is like a self-closing tag. So you write your rel, this is a relative, style sheet, then this is linking, this is the name. Like this now. If I start, there's a bug here now, and you guys might not notice the bug that is here. If I start styling now, let's see which one, color, light blue. It won't work. It won't work. Can anybody tell me why? Let me go back to my code. To where I link. Can anybody tell me why? Why it's not working? Anyone? Don't be shy. Anybody? You can raise your hand and talk. Oh. Let me go back to my code again. I don't even know. You guys didn't say, aha. Sorry. I think this should be better now. So, can anybody tell me why I style my H1 to be light blue, but I go to the website and it's not working? Nobody wants to talk.
I think probably because there is no HTML structure to style on or something.
There's HTML structure already, which is this one already. Just look at the code again. Don't look at the other code. Just look at this part and check while it's like there's something I'm missing that I know have. Can you just guess? Can anybody guess? I'm even giving us info. See, I already highlighted this and I'm highlighting my file, my CSS file. Nobody noticed it. So what I didn't add is the S. You can see I didn't add the S. So these are like one of the major problems we face as a developer. One omitted letter can give you a serious headache. Now, if I don't notice now, I think that it's another thing that's causing the issue. Now you see that it will work. I've added the right. You see it work. It worked rather. Oh, our code will soon end. Let me create the name. Then we can come from there. We can join from there and continue. Let me pause this. Then, so I was talking about linking. I want to go to my notes. Yeah, connecting our CSS to HTML. And this is often called a external CSS. This is called internal CSS. Just another name is inline styling. Inline is the same as internal styling or internal CSS. So just to keep our code structure, it's always good to use external CSS. It's always good to use external CSS. And I mentioned that what we use to connect our external style sheet in HTML is this link in the head tag. Please just take note of that. So yeah, I will tell us why we use a separate CSS file, even though I've mentioned it, but just to give us a definite answer. One is to make our code cleaner. It makes projects easier to maintain. That is, there's not too much code in a single file. And the third thing I wrote here is that it allows the same CSS to style multiple pages. So I'll show us something now. This CSS now, if I create another HTML page, let's say about.html. You guys see what I did there? This is just a shortcut to help you with things. So you just shift, then a declaration, an exclamation mark, then you press your tab to help you with this. How you can still, are we following me? Can you hear me clearly? If you can hear me clearly, please react. So moving. Thank you. Thank you, Morade. Thank you. So I'm trying to explain to us why I said this, that CSS helps us to style multiple pages. You ask me how, I'll show us how now. So I already created another about.html page. So let me just say which one here about me. Then let's check. Yeah, I'm learning front-end development. So normally, assuming we're using inline styling now, you know that this inline styling cannot work. Let me uncomment it. Thank God. Let me comment this out first. So I want you guys to understand something. To understand how key this thing is. So you guys know that this inline styling now, it is working for this page. For this, it is working right now. If I add about me, don't worry about what I'm about to do. This exactly. We'll add that there now. Say read more. You guys see that this inline styling, this inline styling is not working for this page, except I copy this one again. Except I copy this style and I put it here and I put it here. You guys see how stressful it is. You have to be writing different styles for each page. But this is what external CSS makes us to do, or should I say it reduces our workload. So if I link the external style sheet to this script too as well, and I come here, let me remove this one. Let's comment this inline styling out. I hope this does not look like you see that it's work for this page as well. If you see what just happened, just react. If you understand, react. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. You see that it's also work in this page. In as much we link, if I create another page now, let's say contact.html, exclamation mark, and just say each one, hello everybody. And I also link the style sheets here. Come, let me add it here. Section, this is section, contacts me. Uh-huh. Don't just worry about all of this. We will get there. I just want to show us the importance of having an external style sheet. So let's go back to our home page. Let's refresh. You see, it worked. Except the only time it won't work for each page is if I don't link the style sheet in that particular page. Oh, what did I comment this? Oh, sorry. So if I don't link it now, it won't work. Can you see? It didn't work. So that is the importance of having a separate CSS file. It allows the same CSS to style multiple pages. And I just showed us we styled about us page using the same CSS declarations. We styled contacts us page using the same CSS declarations. So if you still don't like have a principle about how HTML and CSS works, the major principle is that HTML handles structure while CSS handles presentation. Do you all get that? I think I've been mentioning this too. HTML handles structure while CSS handles presentation. Now we are going deeper into CSS. We are going to deeper into CSS. So, what is a CSS selector? The CSS selector identifies which HTML element to style, and I showed us. So we will use the example that is here. We will use the example so as to, even though I already showed us quite when we were talking about what CSS is. So like this now, this is a CSS selector. It identifies the elements to be styled. This one now was styling all H1 elements. So now let's use the example for the P type, color, gray. You guys will see something now. You see that those places we use the p tag. Is somebody else have done? Okay, somebody trying to go. Those places we use the p tag, they are gray. You can see. So I just want us to understand this thing very well, so that when we are done with this fundamental codes, you guys will have a strong foundation and you can literally build anything or start building on that foundation. So I said there that the selector, which is this P, it targets all paragraph elements on the page, which is what happened. This selector now targets all the paragraph elements on the page. You see, they're all gray. Let's change it to a color that is not visible. Let's see red right now. You can see now. You see all the paragraph elements in the page. So that is what a CSS selector is. Now we have element selectors. These are we select them by tag name, by the tag name, which is what we did here. The H1 is the tag name, targeted all the H1 element, P target all the paragraph element. You can also see now, you can do something, you can target this section element too as well. Let's see section. Let's give it a background. Oh, what am sorry about that. Background color yellow. I think let us finish this. You see, it already gives each section yellow background. You can see. So this is what I'm talking about in this element selectors. You get to select or style your HTML based on the tag name. So what we are doing here now is element selector. Even though there are different key ways we can style our HTML structure. So then now we have the class sectors and the ID selectors. We have the class selectors and the ID selectors. You see, what you've been working majorly with in CSS in these fundamentals is that you'll be majorly working with class and ID selectors. So I want to use my note for this. I have more detailed explanation there. So, class selector. A class is an attribute that allows us to identify one or more HTML elements for styling or other purposes. So now, how do we use class? I can come here and give this thing a class of, and please use name that is meaningful. Now let's use the main AI gave us, main heading, main heading. Then let me comment this out. Main. So how do you use your class selector in CSS? It is the full stop, or let's say dot on your keyboard. Main, what do you call it again? main heading, main heading. So let's give it, sorry, background color. Let's change it to a random color sharp. You're going to see that it worked and it changed. So I was saying here that a class is an attribute that allows to identify one or more HTML elements for styling. Majorly is for styling, but one of the advantages that a a class, another purpose a class does is that it tells the developer what this H1 is. Like now, I said here now, H1 my portfolio. Now the class name we gave it is the main heading. So anybody that is reading this code now already knows that this is the main heading. I hope we're all following. I hope it's not looking like I'm seeing and speaking magic, and doing magic. So I will give us resources that will help us digest all that we've learned. So why are classes useful? Classes allow us to use the same style. Yes. For example now, if I say class is equals to um skills, this is skills. And here I add another skill, let's say JavaScript. Now let's start our skills. I'm trying to explain what I just said now, that it helps us to reuse the same style we use for a particular element. Use blue. You can see that they both turn to blue because they have the same class. Assuming we give this my skills the same class, it's going to turn blue too. Let's do that and let me show you. Class my skills. So skills again. See that it turned to blue as well. So those are the usefulness of classes. Now we go into ID selector. ID selector. ID selector is just as a class selector, but while implementing it in CSS, it uses the hashtag character instead of the dot character. This is this sorry, this is the hashtag character. This wait. So what is the ID selector? It's it's like an identifier. The thing in meaning is identifier, and it helps us identify a specific HTML element. Basically, ID and classes do the same thing, do the same thing, but classes is generally preferred. And when we go deep into CSS, I'm going to tell us why it is. But now we are still looking at the basics. So let me show us an example of how to use an ID. Let's come here and do and say ID is equals to contacts. Contact. Now let's come here and say as per contact, let's give the background of, okay, let's see that screen. You guys are going to see what will happen. You see, so why is, for a beginner rule, I said here that for styling reusable components, classes are generally preferred. I mentioned that earlier. They are generally preferred. And we will learn more about IDs and CSS specificity later. So now we'll go into CSS colors. Now I was telling us that as much as there are many declarations, many CSS declarations, there are many CSS values as well. Now we'll be going into the color, CSS colors, CSS color, and how we can use different um different property to get the same value. You can use color, you can use hexadecimal, and you can use RGB. What is RGB? That's red, green, and blue. And we are going to play with that. I'm going to show us. So for color, just as we used color here, we already use color here. I say blue. Now for hexadecimal, let me take one of the examples here. For hexadecimal, the declaration, the property will still be color, but you see now, assume, see change to, it's still blue. Now let me show you how RGB. This, this is going to bring another color. Let me not use blue. Let me tweak this a little. Mhm. What are we most time? Skills. You see the color already changed for the skills. Let me give it a more. You can see the colors change. So majorly, why we tend to use these things is because of there will be a point that you start replicating designs from Figma, and it is not all the time that the Figma, or should I say that a UI UX designer will use plain English word as the color value. There are times that they are going to use hexadecimal, and there are times that they are going to use RGB. So in your leisure time, just try and play with the colors in CSS. Now we'll move to, but as a beginner, you can start with the color names. Yes, start with the color names. When you start replicating designs, then you can now start using hexadecimal or RGB values. So background color will not do much on that because we already, this is background color, and yeah, you can also use RGB. You can use RGB, hexadecimal, and normal plain English name for background color as well. Let's use this RGB for background. See, RGB. This is the red, the green, and the blue. Let's give red 138 just to change something. Let's see. Let's see. You can also use this hexadecimal way. So moving on, we have text and font. I'm just trying to let us know the the declarations we have in CSS and the property values as well. We already touched on font size. I showed us font size here earlier on. Yeah, this is font size. If we reduce this to 20, we will see that our main heading will be small. You see, as we reduce it to 20 pixels, it's quite small. So we have font family. This font family, it is what will determine the visual style of the text. So let's just to show you. So in CSS, there are font family that already comes with it, and these are all the fonts family that comes with it. These are all the uh, sorry, the property value that comes with the font family. Yes, but later on when you start becoming more of a front-end developer, there are some font family that you have to import. Let me show us. Let me just show us what I'm talking about. Google Google Fonts. Google Font download. There are some you have to download or import directly. But for now, we'll just work on with the one we work with what CSS has. Work with what CSS has. So if you want more fonts, you don't like the one CSS has, you can always come here and test. Always come here and test and check it out. You see, this is Roboto. So there are different font sizes. But yeah, let's use sans serif. Sans serif. You see that it changed. If you notice that changes, kindly react. If you notice the change, kindly react. I want to know if you are still following. Thank you so much, Moradi. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So you see that the font of this my portfolio change. That is the work of font family. That is the work of font family. We also have font width. 400 is normal. 700 is bold. Let me show us. Even though we can use plain English, we can still use number font width 700. I want something that will be very. I just want to show us something. Let's see if it is 400. Be quite light. You see how light it is. It is not that bold. So that is the work of font weight. Aha. So that is the work of font weight. Then we have text alignment. We already use text alignment, which is here. Text align center. This is why our text is at the center. This is why our text is at the center. If I remove it now, it's going to go to the edge. You can see it went to the edge. So hold it back, center, center back. Text color. We already talked about this. So this text color, let me show us the difference between color and text color. Even though they quite do the same thing. You see, saying unknown property. Let's remove this column now. Oh, why is this saying unknown property? It's not supposed to be. Hmm. No longer I've wrote CSS. Okay, now I remember what I want to do. So assuming I write text alone, I can give it this. Ah, what is this? It's still giving me error. Oh, there's no text color anymore. So I already showed us text color and background color. Text color is basically the color. Then we have now this is the part we'll be ending with today, and I hope we'll all be able to understand it. I want us to end the class in the next 20 minutes. So this is a very, very complex part in CSS, and it's the CSS box model. CSS box model. Now I was telling us here with us when we started this class, as I told us that the three things that majorly makes up the box model is the margin, the border, and the padding. So what's another thing that can be added is the content. I have a visual image here to explain to us. So this is the box model. This right here is the box model. Then we have the margin, we have the border, we have the padding. So what is the padding? The padding is the space between the border and the content. I hope you all get what I said now. Yeah, I said the content is the actual text or image. Like I said again, I didn't even look at the screen. I said that the padding is the space between the content and the border, while the margin is the space outside the border. I hope you are following. I hope you are following. You see, before I show us example, every element on this web page are a box. This section, this section is a box. This my skills section is a box. This my portfolio is a box. I already talked about the four key parts about the box model. It is the content, that is the innermost layer. It holds the actual text, images, or other elements placed inside an HTML element. I don't want to waste our time. So let me show us in a practicalize Yeah, let me share some particulars. So let's use this contact us as an example. So this is the padding. Let's give our padding 10 pixels. You see, you see that the contact is shifted a little bit from where it was before. Let me comment this out. This is back. So what padding does, I established earlier that padding is the space between the border and the content. So padding gives space inside the element. As a developer, one of the things you'll be working with in spacing elements is padding and margin. The difference between margin and padding is that padding gives space inside the element, while margin gives space outside the element. You guys will see what I'm talking about. So let's say padding 10 pixels. See, it's shifted. Now let me just give it margin. And yes, there's margin top, there's margin bottom, there's margin left, right. There are different margin, but let's just do this one. Let's just say 20 pixels. You see what I'm talking about now. Do you see? You see that it shifted from the top. That's outside. Let me give it a background color. Yeah, we'll see what I'm talking about. Let me remove the margin again. So like I said, padding, it spaced the element. It spaced the elements inside. It creates space inside the element rather, not outside. It is margin that creates space outside. Let me know rushes. So now we have border. A border is like a visible boundary around an element. Let me see if I can show us a border in a more professional. So this is the border. This like this is a border. Let me you see this thing around this button. This color is the border. Let's try to give our contact in the border. So border and pixel solid black. Do you see? Do you guys see this color? This is the border. This is the border. I hope we are understanding the box model. If you are following, please react. Thank you, Johnson. Thank you, Johnson. Thank you, Sir Johnson. Oh, thank you, Morade. I was about to say, since Morade has left me, but thank you. That's by the way. So, as I was saying, this is an example of a border. Let me show us a more professional website. Here, you see. So it's a thick line. It's a visible boundary around an element. And now we've gotten to margin. Like what I said, margin gives space outside an element border. Now, since we've done all of the box model and all it means is a margin, let me comment this out and show us what margin does. Do you see? So I don't know if you can see my code clearly like this. Let me remove the margin again. I want us to see what margin do. You see that margin gives it's It's giving is creating space outside the element, not inside. This is the content. Oh, this contact me is the content. We established that there are four key things in box model: margin, border, padding, and the content. And we said the padding is the space between the border and the content. If you notice that there's see this border, like this is the space. Padding is the space between it and this content, which is the content name. So for example now, if I increase this to 30 pixels, you guys will see that the contact name here, see it moved, and the space inside the element got bigger. That is what padding does. Now, margin creates space outside this thing now. This is what thing I'm highlighting. This whole padding and contacting. It creates space outside it. If I do you see? Let me increase this to 40 pixels. You see that the space is not happening inside, unlike padding. Oh, is anybody following?
Yes, I'm following. I get you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Maradaya. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sir Smax. Thank you, Ma. So this is how the box model works. See, if you can understand this thing, then you cannot have difficulty in installing websites. You can't. You can't. So before I move on, does anybody have any question on box model? Because I know it's because I does anybody has question on box model? Because I know it's quite
No, I don't. I don't have any question.
all right. Thank you, ma. So all right, all right. Yeah, I already said talked about padding versus margin. I already talked about padding versus margin. I already told us that padding space the inside the element, and I showed us. I wrote here also that margin space outside the element. Can I showed us padding space inside the element while margin space outside the element. I already talked about that. I already showed us an example of box model, but let me just let's use the example. Let's use the example. If we have about 10 minutes now, it will soon be done. Soon be done. Let me just give us a final example. So where's our index.html? The example I use in the notes. So once I drop this note, you can also go back to your VS Code and just play with every of the things you've done. So look at what we did here now. We gave this element a background color of white. We gave it a padding of 20 pixels. Now let's reduce that to 10. You see that it will get smaller. Aha. Let me reduce the margin as well. So this is just an example of box model. This is how CSS box model works. So when you want to style a particular section, you don't have to start um, putting another thing in another place. That is where you are supposed to give it a little margin. Instead, you are giving it a padding instead. So I hope you get that. Width. So in CSS, you can also style the width and height of an element. And I'm going to use this box model example. So if you give it width, yeah, you can see that in CSS you can manipulate a lot of things. You can manipulate HTML. You see how small it, it becomes, how small the box model becomes, despite the fact that we we already gave it a margin of 10 pixels and a padding of 10 pixels. You see, so let's increase to something more beautiful. Let's give it 250 pixels. Yeah, this is quite beautiful. So that is by the way for width. Then we have height. Can give it 150 pixel. See, see the height. If you give it 15 now, it will look so rubbish. Aha, it will look so rubbish. Somebody might ask me, but it was so perfect when we didn't even add any height. So the answer to that is that the browser automatically gives it a height that is suitable for this width we use. So if I remove this now, you see that it still be the same thing. You see, just slightly better. It's even better than the value we gave it. So that is that on the height. Then we have border radius. What is border radius? It's something that makes it creates like rounded corners. Let me look for a website. Aha, you see these rounded corners. By the way, I beat this website. That's why I'm using it as an example because I'm the one that built it. You see these rounded corners. These rounded corners. Yes, this is what a border radius is. You can give it for you can give it to this things too. You see. Yes, so let me show us border radius. Let's see 5 pixel. Sorry, 5 pixel. And border radius cannot work without us declaring the border CSS declaration. You see, do you guys notice the rounded corner? This is the rounded corner. So that is that on border radius. Now if I remove this border, you see it won't work. You see that there's no more rounded corners because I already removed the border. So border radius cannot work without border. I hope you get that. So that is that on border radius. So this is our practical project. So on Friday I'll start dropping tasks. But for now, just practice what we've learned today. Practice what we've learned today. Practice what we've learned today. So I will drop this in the comment section as our practice tests, as our practice starts. So you can copy it. Don't use AI. Don't use AI to practice. I had advised that Murade is laughing. During my own time, I was not even given the chance to learn AI. I'm talking about 3 years ago. In fact, I don't think there was already AI back then. But now I use a lot of AI. And why? It's because I already understand the fundamentals. I already know what to tell the AI. And when the AI even drops rubbish for me, I can correct the AI or correct it myself. So you are just starting your journey. Just try to practice. Practice. Back then, what I usually do is that once I learn from a tutorial, after writing, after following a that tutor to code. Then I will create my own file and practice. I will change a lot of things, just play with it around to understand it and also so that it will stick in my memory. So I already dropped this. I will drop a like something that can help us. An example you can follow. Don't write my own. This is just an example you can follow. You see, I even gave us hints with like a reference, like a reference. So I don't know. I will not drop this CSS. Though even though I'm dropping the notes, so you guys can go and check it from there. This is just a starter pack. Then you can add your own. You can play with the colors. I hope you feel me and you understand what I'm talking about. So the challenge is that you start your own website. Start your own website. Let me even paste the CSS. I already said I will not paste it for you guys, but I will paste it. You guys, the way you submit is that you send me screenshot. I'm going to tag people that are on this call. And you guys will reward is that I'll make sure that I I personally invest myself to your growth. So if you can do this, you can enter my DM and send me screenshot or you don't understand something, just tag me on the group or enter my DM. I hope you understand. So we've come to the end of today's class. Aha, I wrote here now. Common beginner mistakes in CSS. One of the mistakes is forgetting to connect CSS. You know that was one of the things I made mention when I was connecting my CSS that even though I already connected it, but it was not working, which is because I did not I omitted a particular letter in the name I used to store my file. So when I was learning 3 years ago, I usually made that mistake. I will now be giving myself the necessary reading. I'll be like, where is this coming from? Until I'll now look and say, so it's because I omitted a particular letter. So that's by the way. Another mistake is the wrong file name, just like I mentioned. If your href says star.css, meanwhile you store your file name with styles.css, that is styles, it will not work. Another thing is wrong folder location. Let your style.css be in the same folder with your index.html. Not that it will you create another folder. It's going to confuse you. And for the classes, when you start using class, I already said that for us to be able to implement class is using dots, is using the dot. It's required for a class selector. If you don't use it, it will not work. It will not work. And like I made mention the difference between margin and padding. Please know the difference. Padding is for the inside. Padding, it creates space inside the element, while margin creates space outside the element. So I hope you get that. So this is the end of our class. You can always check for more in this. Our if you want us to do a quick recap, just raise up your hand. Or you guys will go and look at it in the notes. Let's start from right there.
I actually understand everything that was taught today. So
Uh,
yeah, the only issue I have is I really do not get some information due to the fact that I missed the last class. But I think I will catch up once I get access to the documents.
all right, all right, all right. That's a good one. No problem. No problem. Big one. That's a big one. All right. So that is the end of our class. I hope you all enjoyed today's class and you gain one or two knowledge, even if it's that some points it was looking like we're doing magic. So, all right. Do have a good night rest. Goodbye, everybody.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much for the class.
You are welcome. Thank you so much.